Everything changed in a matter of seconds. You know, in the National Football League, a reputation is absolutely the most fragile currency you can possess. One moment, you are the undeniable future of a franchise, you're the golden child of the gridiron, right? The guy everyone is pointing to. And then, the next, you are quite literally fighting just to prove you still belong in the conversation with the elite. Welcome to NFL Nexus. I am your host, and today we're embarking on a premium explainer of a situation that is sending massive shockwaves through the league as we approach the 2026 season. We're going to be dissecting the absolutely precipitous fall of Houston Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud and the high-stakes, desperate fix that could either completely save his season or seal his fate for good. So let's dive right in, because frankly, the margins for error in Houston have completely vanished. So I really want you to just sit with this question for a second. How does a Rookie of the Year become an afterthought? I mean, think back to 2023. C.J. Stroud was the absolute sensation of the league. He was the undeniable Rookie of the Year, the orchestrator of this stunning turnaround that literally had the entire NFL world buzzing. But as they say, the NFL really stands for not for long, and the collective memory of this league is brutally, brutally short. Entering 2026, all that admiration, it's evaporated. It's been replaced by this cold, calculating skepticism. And we aren't just talking about a slight dip in form here or a standard sophomore slump. No, this is a foundational questioning of his actual capability to lead a franchise to the promised land. In this league, you're only as good as your last performance. And for Stroud, well, that last performance has left a seriously bitter taste in the mouths of evaluators everywhere. Over the past couple of weeks, ESPN has been conducting their annual Ruthless Personnel Polling. And keep in mind, they don't just ask anyone on the street. They go directly to the shot callers. We're talking NFL executives, veteran coaches, the elite scouts, the exact people whose livelihoods literally depend on evaluating talent correctly. When these guys were asked to rank their top 10 quarterbacks entering 2026, Stroud's name was completely absent. He didn't make the top 10. He didn't even make the top 15. Instead, his name was unceremoniously dropped into the scrap heap category labeled also receiving votes. Now, he wasn't completely forgotten, but he's standing right on the precipice of irrelevance here. That phrase, also receiving votes, man, it is the ultimate front office insult. It's basically a polite way of saying you are no longer the main character of this story. You're an extra. You're just an afterthought in the minds of the men who actually run this league. And the contrast here is absolutely staggering. Let's look at 2025 for a second. Just one single year ago, Stroud was the first honorable mention, just outside the top 10. He was essentially ranked 11th, right? Barely edged out by Baker Mayfield. He was literally knocking on the door of that elite top-tier status. But fast forward to his 2026 status, he has plummeted all the way down to a tie for the 18th to 20th spot. And look at exactly who he is grouped with right now. Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos and Daniel Jones of the Indianapolis Colts. Now look, with all due respect to those men, these are quarterbacks who are constantly fighting for their professional lives. Players actively battling just to retain their starting jobs week in and week out. For a former Rookie of the Year to be lumped into that exact same tier, it's a massive glaring red flag. His stock hasn't just dropped, it has completely crashed in a span of a single calendar year. But here's the thing. A collapse of this magnitude doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It requires a perfect storm. His third season in Houston, the 2025 campaign, was a season that was entirely derailed. When a player falls from 11th to 20th in the eyes of these ruthless league executives, you really have to look under the hood to see what's going on. You have to lock yourself in the film room, break down the all-22 tape, and understand the context of every single snap. Because film review exposes every flaw, sure, but it also reveals the environment around the player. The reality here is that Stroud was fighting battles on multiple fronts. Some were within his control, and some were entirely out of his hands. This sudden drop was a result of a compounding nightmare, this brutal sequence of unfortunate events that methodically stripped away that aura of invincibility he'd built up during his rookie campaign. Let's meticulously walk through the anatomy of this derailment, because in the NFL, the details are literally everything. First, the infrastructure crumbled. He was operating behind a wildly inconsistent offensive line and severely lacked a reliable run game. And you know how it is in the NFL. When a defense doesn't respect the run, pass rushers just pin their ears back. They hunt. A quarterback dropping back knowing the protection is leaky and the defense is teeing off, that creates happy feet and rush decisions. Second, the physical toll. Stroud suffered a concussion that forced him out for 3 critical games. And missing 3 weeks isn't just about the losses in the standings. It's about the total forfeiture of your offensive rhythm. It halts your momentum entirely. And finally, the third step, the defining, catastrophic meltdown when the lights were the absolute brightest, a moment that completely overshadowed any regular season success he managed to salvage. And that brings us to the exact quote from our sources, ending it with a brutal 4-interception day against the New England Patriots. Let that sink in for a second. 4 interceptions in a playoff game. This is the visceral pain of his 2025 nightmare. This wasn't some random Week 3 slip-up in September where you can just bounce back the next week. This was the divisional round, the absolute biggest stage. This was the exact moment he was supposed to prove he belonged in the AFC heavyweight conversation, alongside the likes of Mahomes and Allen. Instead, he imploded. And this single game is the heavy anchor currently dragging down his reputation. When those scouts and executives cast their votes for 2026, they aren't thinking about his dazzling rookie year anymore. They are watching this 4-interception disaster playing on a relentless, unforgiving loop in their minds. It's the exact reason his stock hit absolute rock bottom. Which brings us to the present. The narrative tone around him has completely shifted from promising young star to immense, suffocating stakes. The pressure of 2026 is unparalleled for CJ Stroud. He is officially stepping into a make-or-break crucible. If he stumbles again this year, the whispers of doubt are going to turn into a deafening roar. The conversations and the brutal criticism from the media will only get louder and more intense. The leeway, that grace period afforded to a young quarterback, it's officially expired. He is now a veteran in his 4th year, and the franchise is looking at him expecting a massive return on their investment. This is no longer about development, guys. This is about immediate, undeniable results. So let's break down this pressure cooker he's in. First, you've got the elephant in the room, looming contract negotiations. The entire financial future of his career hinges on exactly how he performs in these next 17 games. The difference between being viewed as a top 10 franchise cornerstone versus a middle-of-the-pack game manager is literally tens of millions of dollars in guaranteed money. He needs to prove his worth to the penny. Second, there are absolutely no more excuses regarding this system. He's entering year 2 under offensive coordinator Nick Caley. Familiarity means the learning curve is over. He's expected to execute this playbook flawlessly from snap 1. And third, he has a desperate, urgent need to rebuild his reputation. He's got a bitter taste in his mouth from how last season ended. He has to forcibly insert his name back into the elite conversation, and he has to do it immediately. So with the stakes being this incredibly high and the pressure practically suffocating, we have to ask the ultimate question. What is the missing piece? If Stroud is actually going to exorcise the ghosts of that 4-interception playoff game and leverage Nick Caley's system to secure a massive payday, he cannot do it alone. No quarterback can, no matter how talented. The Texans front office knows this. They know they need a plot twist. They need a highly combustible catalyst that can instantly elevate this offense and effectively save Houston's season. They need someone who can tilt the entire axis of the field and force defensive coordinators into impossible decisions. And that leads us directly to the Diggs equation. Stefon Diggs, the veteran wide receiver, is hitting the open market just weeks ahead of training camp. And we really cannot view this merely as a standard free agent signing. No, for the Houston Texans, this is a desperate bid for salvation. It's this calculated equation where adding one specific, highly productive, fiercely competitive element could completely alter the trajectory of their quarterback and their entire franchise. Stefon Diggs brings an edge, a swagger, and a route-running mastery that fundamentally changes how an offense operates. But, as you might expect, Houston is absolutely not the only team that has done the math on this equation. At least 5. That is the number of rival teams that have officially checked in on the 4-time Pro Bowler. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, 5 different front offices have made the call, creating a suffocating sense of urgency. We are just a couple of weeks out from training camps opening across the league. That means the logistical window to secure a player of this caliber, to get him into your building, to teach him the complex nuances of your playbook, and to build that unspoken, split-second chemistry with your quarterback, that window is violently slamming shut. Bringing in a star receiver this late in the offseason is an immense logistical hurdle. If the Texans want to solve their Stroud problem with Diggs, they are in an absolute bidding war against the clock and the rest of the league. But you might be wondering, why the massive interest in a 12-year vet? Some front offices might look at his age and hesitate, right? But let's look at the actual context of his 2025 season with the New England Patriots. Diggs was coming off a devastating ACL tear, and because of that brutal recovery, he was heavily managed on a pitch count, playing only about 55% of the offensive snaps. He was barely on the field for half the game. Most receivers coming off major knee reconstruction, facing the biomechanical and mental hurdles of trusting their joints against elite NFL defensive backs, would simply fade into the background. They lose a step, they avoid contact, but Stefon Diggs is not most receivers. Despite the physical limitations and the heavily restricted snap count, he remained an absolutely lethal threat whenever he stepped across the white lines. 1,000 yards on just 55% of the snaps. Coming off an ACL tear, Stefon Diggs still produced over 80 receptions and 1,000 receiving yards last season. I mean, this isn't just a statistic. This is undeniable, concrete proof that he is still an elite, game-breaking weapon. It honestly defies football logic. Think about the degree of difficulty here. If he can produce a 1,000-yard season effectively playing part-time on a surgically repaired knee, fighting through double coverages on crucial downs, you have to imagine the sheer terror he is going to inflict on defenses when he is fully unleashed. It's a testament to his freakish athleticism and his sheer mastery of the receiver position. It's exactly why those 5 teams are frantically blowing up his agent's phone right now. And the news gets even better for whoever manages to sign him, because Diggs currently has a perfectly clear runway. Sources indicate he feels he can be even more explosive this year. And why? Because he has had a full, uninterrupted offseason of training with absolutely no injuries holding him back. On top of that, his legal troubles from earlier this offseason have been completely resolved. There is no looming league suspension, no lingering medical red flags, and no off-field distractions whatsoever. In the NFL, head coaches crave certainty above almost anything else. A distraction-free star player is worth their weight in gold. For a contending team looking for an immediate spark, Diggs is the ultimate plug-and-play addition. He is ready to step onto the field on day 1 of training camp with total, undivided focus, which escalates the scale of this narrative to the absolute maximum. For the Houston Texans, acquiring Diggs wouldn't just be about padding C.J. Stroud's stats. It's about a ruthless Super Bowl or bust mentality. Diggs is just 1 season removed from his time in H-Town. He knows the locker room. He knows the culture. He knows the weight of the city's massive expectations. Bringing him back is a massive statement to the entire AFC. If Stroud is actually going to take that massive leap forward, having a battle-tested veteran like Diggs to rely on in this critical 3rd and long situations might be exactly what this team needs to push over the hump when January football finally arrives. This is the ultimate all-in move to permanently erase the stain of 2025 and genuinely chase a ring. Look, if you write it down on paper, it is downright terrifying. The 2026 Dream Arsenal. You have a highly motivated C.J. Stroud playing with his back against the wall. You pair him with Nico Collins, a proven, dominant physical force on the outside who demands safety help every single snap. You add the explosive, dynamic route running of Tank Dell operating in space, and then you drop a healthy 1,000-yard producing Stefon Diggs right back into the mix. Geometrically, how does a defensive coordinator even begin to scheme against that? You literally cannot double-team everyone. Pick your poison. If you bracket Diggs, Collins runs free. If you blitz Stroud, Dell burns you hot. Reassembling this specific group creates an unsolvable puzzle for opposing defenses. It could be the very catalyst that violently pulls Stroud from the bottom of the rankings right back into MVP contention, pushing Houston straight to the top of the conference. But the sand in the hourglass is rapidly running out in Houston. Training camp is arriving. 5 rival front offices are circling like sharks, and C.J. Stroud's legacy hangs precariously in the balance. Will they pull the trigger on the Diggs equation, or will they let the season slip away before the very first snap? That is the defining question for this franchise. Thank you so much for joining me for this deep dive explainer. If you want to stay ahead of every massive shift in the league, you absolutely need to subscribe to the channel right now. We are NFL Nexus, and this is where the real game is analyzed. If you like this explainer, please like the video, leave a comment down below on whether you think Stroud can actually bounce back this year, and support the channel by becoming a channel member today. Until next time, keep your eyes on the gridiron.